watch the meeting for a while.
Stan is okay?
No, Stan is still not okay, so we really have to speak up. Because it really doesn't come across very, very well. I mean, I put my headphones on and put the volume setting all the way to the top, and I could kind of make out what's going on. But it's still tough with the mics in the ceiling and not, so close to us.
So maybe they should drop them just a little bit?
Yeah, could you think they have wire to drop them next time? These are
I don't know.
pop panels, it's
Yeah.
easy.
I don't know. I don't want to go.
Yeah. You want me
Messing
to
with
stand up
anything.
and just pull them down?
See
what happens?
I dare you to.
I will mention it to Brian Fraser
Yeah.
to see if that can be done.
Good.
All right, thank you. So the first item on the agenda is review and approval of the minutes. January, two minutes from January 5th and January 12th. Why don't we start with January 5th?
Did we,
This was the best part.
was Bruce talking about doing 10 roads or 10 miles of roads? And this is in,
I would venture to say that it's probably, I wasn't here, but I would venture to say it's 10 roads.
Yes.
it is.
Because it's
10 roads.
identified as roads. Projects are identified as roads, not as miles.
Not as miles, okay,
Right.
all right, so then that's fine. Okay. It's sort of like just before Bruce gets finished, at the end, near the end of the first page, it says, this is attributable to you, you'll be able to use the retained, I think issues should be earnings.
Retained earnings, it should be retained
Earnings,
What page is this on?
this is on the,
It's the second to last paragraph, third sentence down from that.
On the January
Yep.
5th?
Yep.
yeah, January 5.
The second page is
Second to the last paragraph.
Second to the last
Gotcha.
paragraph, okay.
I got you covered.
So good. All right, is that, did you find it?
So we'll do I have a motion to adjust the minutes?
I have a motion to adjust the minutes to have it restated issues to earnings, page 3, second paragraph from the bottom,
Yeah. Oh, page 3. Yeah, sorry.
third sentence down, middle of the line,
Oh, yeah.
4 words from line, or 5 words from the period.
Second motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The second,
Is this on the same set of, we'll go with the 5th.
Same set of minutes, yeah.
Same set of minutes, okay.
let's see, I think this is something that mailer says 15%.
On page 4, third from the last, it says McClure has helped us with munis.
Yeah.
That's not correct, but I don't know what he said.
Oh, is that the name of is that
Munis?
Munis
Is
is the
that the name of your
software.
software?
Oh, sorry.
MUNI, shouldn't be all capital,
MUNIS.
MUNIS.
Okay.
There's a
Munis.
reference
Sorry.
to 15% by Andrew somewhere.
15%?
15%, oh, but
You know what he was
5%. It's 5%. And it's 5% of what? Ah, here it is. Page 4.
Yeah.
first full paragraph, sort of last sentence,
Mhm.
below the 5%. 5% of what, my question was?
So that's 5% of debt as the operating budget. So basically
Yeah.
saying that
Debt.
we won't borrow any more than would
Yeah, so
create a debt burden of more than 5% of operating
That's kind of
revenues.
a high
So
watermark,
how do we
right?
wanna
What do you say?
insert that?
So we want to just edit that to say, we try to keep, I propose we say, we try to keep within the 5%, and I just want to use the same language that we use on the, why don't we say the 5% net debt ratio? Because that's the language that's in the.
5% net debt ratio.
Right, actually, I can't make a motion, but if someone wants to make a motion.
Okay, I make a motion that we insert in the last sentence of the first full paragraph on page 4 of the minutes, after 5%, words and percent sign, debt.
Net
Net.
debt
Net
ratio.
debt ratio.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The last sentence, Mailer, the next sentence, full sentence down from that, we are seeing construction escalation, would that be cost construction?
Yeah.
Cost? Okay, so I move to
Okay, where was that?
The next sentence down from the last
the
one we just
next,
changed.
the next sentence down from the last one we just changed.
Mailer stated that we are seeing construction escalation costs.
Costs.
So it's construction cost escalation, right?
No, you want-
Not, or escalation cost. Well,
Construction
Yeah.
cost
Cost
escalation.
escalation.
Mhm.
So I move that we insert the word cost, after construction and before escalation in.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
And there's another 5% hanging out.
Yeah,
On page 5.
On page 5,
yeah.
5% of the facility master.
5% of the.
Well, I recall the conversation, and it was you, but I think we're talking about the same 5% net debt ratio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, seen with, I would say instead of the master facility plan, I'd say seen in. I think that would be a better, I mean, Thomas, you tell me, that would be a better paraphrase.
Yeah, no, that was what was meant, the 5% net debt ratio.
Mhm.
5% net debt ratio
Seen it
seen in the
Facility master.
the facility master plan. Okay. So, in the first sentence of the last, second sentence on page 5, I move that we insert after 5% net, and the words net debt ratio seen in. Everybody happy?
in. Second.
Okay, all right.
All in favor?
Aye, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
I move to accept the minutes as amended, January 5th.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Okay, so we'll move on to the January 12th meeting minutes.
Page 2, the third paragraph from the bottom. On It says KB and BC spoke at separate times of spreadsheets and having things listed on spreadsheets. I think we were talking about, buildings.
Right, I think we were talking about like future possible projects.
Yes, projects.
Stuff for facilities too, master plan too, stuff.
Well, no, we were talking to Steve and he was saying, you know, he's got, you know, anytime like a running list of maybe 10 to 20 items.
Yeah.
20
that-
buildings, yeah.
So
Right.
maintenance.
He's got all the different maintenance things could be done in different buildings. So I think
These are
if we
projects,
clarified
not
it to say,
buildings.
yeah, I'd say book at separate times of spreadsheets having potential future projects listed on them that need to be done in rank order. So I think, you know, actually, maybe the best way to say it would be, you know, Karen Blake, Bill Callahan, both mentioned that they'd like to see a list of, in rank order of future facility projects.
Hmm.
So I'll say that one last, I'll write it down at the same time so we can make it clear. But I think what we're trying to say was,
Could we slightly change?
yeah, I
And
think we should say,
and requested a list of future facility projects in
Right.
rank order.
requested a list of future
Future
facilities. Yep.
Projects in rank order.
Did you ask for them in rank order, or did you just ask what his allotment was going to be used for?
No, we
No, we
basically,
said rank order.
yeah, we said like rank order so that, you know,
When one comes,
Priority.
when
One
something
when
pops
one
up,
rolls
what comes
off
off the bottom?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. The highest priorities and then.
So
Yeah.
instead of rank, priority?
Well, I think I use those two terms interchangeably, yeah. So I think rank order is fine, so requested a list of future facilities projects in rank order. Someone wanna make a motion? Jennifer,
Oh,
you
that's
wanna make
right,
a
I'll
motion?
make a motion.
Sure.
So on page 2, third section from the bottom, change to spoke at separate times of spreadsheets and requested a list of future facility projects in rank order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
In the same vein, there's a reference, on page 3. Two paragraphs up from the Agenda A information block, towards the top of the page, there's a reference to that list.
Mhm.
What list?
That's the rank order.
The rank order
List.
list.
Facilities rank order list.
Facilities.
Okay, we have a motion?
Motion to amend, paragraph that we will work on future, on a list of future rank order for the second, list for the second and third year. Continue.
Future facilities rank.
Facilities, yep.
Future facilities rank order lists, okay.
Yeah.
Ready, you got it.
Second?
I'll second, or you're second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, can you tell me who seconded that? And I didn't.
Karen, seconded it?
Yep.
Okay.
Under agenda information on page 3, I think it's the core.
We took it out of order, right?
No, the system. Where's the system? There's some word about the system.
I can find anything, so. It says system, that's what you're focused on?
Yeah, here it
It
is,
is most
1,
proud
2, 3, 4 paragraphs in the bottom on page 3.
So actually the third paragraph up from the bottom of page 3, the thing that he's most proud of is the strengthened system. That one?
Mm-hmm. That he has had with the school, what does that mean? Strengthened system? Strengthened,
I'm going to guess.
Communication?
Networks?
Networks?
networks,
Yep.
network system?
We were talking about network.
Because he's, in the next sentence, he talks about the focus on networks will remain, and as much as we can, whether the cloud will remain.
IT networks versus networking, that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Um,
Ah,
He was proud of the network for sure that he had with the schools, that embraced the school system. So I'm assuming he was talking about network.
Yeah, why don't we change system to network? I think that would kind of capture it.
And I'd like to change it to IT network.
Sure.
So people don't think you're networking and he's having good relationship with them.
I think that's part of it, but
Yeah,
I think.
but for public's sake.
Yeah.
I move to change this is the fourth paragraph from the bottom of page 3, January 12th minutes, that the word system be modified, basically say IT network.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a second. So Jennifer seconded,
Second.
and we, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're all set. Anything else?
Well, just under that, on page 3, somewhere, just under that, the sentence that we just did surgery on, the next one is, so McClure, the sentence says, for the municipalities, he has worked with accounts payable, general ledgers, budgeting payments to make it a success.
I recall that we were talking about Munis because which
He had prior experience.
he had prior
This is
experience.
about
That
his
is other
past
things- yeah,
experience
correct, with
other
munis.
municipals,
So I think the essence of what he was saying was, he's had success with munis as opposed to municipalities.
Oh, okay.
So the suggested edit might be, for the munis accounting system, or if we want to be more specific and say municipal accounting system, I think that would add the clarity that we're looking for, because that's.
Okay.
And do we have any motions?
You want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Second paragraph from the bottom of page 3, change to for the accounting system.
Right.
He has worked with accounts payable and so forth.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Karen seconded, we're unanimous in favor.
Finally, on the page. Oh. Page 4. Google ever goes out on business. I suppose we were talking about the cloud storage business, I believe.
I believe the question was just, if Google goes out of business?
Right.
It was an all-encompassing question.
Everything's in Google, yeah.
Okay.
Single
All right.
point of failure, yeah.
He did elaborate, but I
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I know what it was. but it might be in here. I don't remember seeing it. The Laserfiche was the uninstalled backup, and that was redundant and backed up. But
And
it's
then
up
the-
above, spoke of Laserfiche now stores and indexes, so
Okay.
somehow it got a little,
Yeah.
yeah, it's there.
I move to accept the January 12th minutes as amended.
I second.
All in favor?
I second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, Lynn has the information we requested about kind of year-over-year CIP, and she'll pass it out and explain it, because it's,
Thank you.
no, and she'll explain it. Probably not yet, I think she wanted to talk.
Yeah, I just wanted to explain to you, because what I had to do was I printed from the old system what we ended with in fiscal year 2015, so that you knew what the ending balances were. And then you have the top printout on each one, which has a blue bar across it, is the new system.
Munis system that we've just been talking about
Yeah.
sometimes.
And they don't capitalize it.
What you'll see is, if you pick that one up, the one underneath is, the top one's facilities, the one underneath is facilities, but that's from the old system.
Got it.
So that you can see where the balances will flow from 2015 into 16. Because I felt that if you just got the new system, you'd question the original appropriation totals, because they're not going to be the original appropriation totals other than 2016. Because the balances here are carryover balances from the conversion.
Okay.
Okay, and I couldn't, it isn't gonna pull over the original appropriation, because all the other data isn't there to reduce the balance. So they're pretty self-explanatory. I highlighted each department so that you could see them in subtotal by department as to what the capital projects each department has and what their balances are.
So I can see $150,000 coming from this being planned to be used for the roof.
Right, because facilities, I think, was one of the main ones that everyone wanted to see. And if you look here from the top, his building maintenance from 2014, it really has a zero balance because he has 8,677 as a balance, but that's already committed in a purchase order, waiting for the invoice to come in. The IT, air conditioning, he has a balance of 18,000, which most likely that will end up, we'll have to put an article at town meeting to rescind that, because that's completed, there's no more funds needed for that. Either we'll rescind it or use it towards another purpose, and use the excess bond proceeds. Building maintenance 2015, he only has $16,000 left, so he's working down. The Sutton Street thrift shop, that's the thrift shop on Sutton Street that they're working on. That's that,
Schofield Mill.
yes, that's that external building that they're supposed to be adding on. I think that, is that going out to bid?
He's working on it.
He's working on that to go out to bid.
So that's
that-
committed.
That is committed.
So the
Okay.
town owns that, the town's rehabbing that.
Correct.
For town employee use, or is there, we don't know the
We
usage?
lease it out.
Thank you.
It's a lease.
Yeah.
We bought it in 2001.
Historic preservation.
Good, okay, thank you.
And then 2016, he has the complete 150,000, because he needs to use up the oldest first and then work down. So he has been spending it, and I believe out of this one for the 2016 is where he's gonna use to help with some of the library roof. I believe he
Okay, so
spoke
that's
to
where
you
some of
about
that-
that, right.
So if you go to your focus from last year, if you look at his building maintenance 2015,
Yeah,
out of the original 150,000, he ended the year with 84,569. That got carried over in line 3036 to this year, of which he now has just a balance of $16,000. So those were some of the focus of your questions at your last meeting.
Yeah, this is all stuff that goes to Steve's maintenance budget?
This
Yep.
is
This is all
Steve, right, this is
capital. Yeah.
facilities capital.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
This is the RTC?
Nope.
Thank you.
It's RTC.
Republican Town Committee.
Oh.
Oh, I didn't know there was one.
It was supposed to be here, and it got moved someplace else.
And they didn't put up signs.
Well, they didn't post
Uh,
it correctly.
So I think one question that was coming up was, let's just use kind of case A and case B,
Okay.
just to kind of dig in a little bit. So let's say appropriation of $100,000 in a bucket that's, like a Steve bucket is a good example because it's a little bit more amorphous than like
Right, his
fire
is a little
station.
different, right,
Right, than
exactly.
everybody else's. But let's say he gets allotted $100,000 for capital projects,
Yep.
right? At what point would you go to bond that $100,000?
Typically, the process that we go through for bonding is, we vote this, say, last year at May, we
Right.
voted all of these capital projects for 2016. I will do the borrowing in May, June timeframe, because I have to fund the capital projects if they've been spending against it, so I don't have a deficit, because if I have a deficit, then I get hit on free cash.
Right.
So I'll typically look at all of the capital projects and see what's been spent year to date. And I'll ask the departments, like, especially for like water and sewer or for Bruce's department, they're larger projects, larger dollar amounts. If he's not gonna spend that all up before June 30th, I won't borrow it all.
Right.
I'll only borrow what he believes he's gonna spend, because unless he says he's gonna spend it in July.
Right.
You know, or July, August timeframe, because why borrow it and pay on it if I don't have to?
Right, okay.
So, but most of the projects are being spent up.
What
Right.
type of bond lend do they use for that?
What do you mean?
Is it a
It's GO
municipal construction bond?
No,
or-
it's just a general.
General?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, same for water and sewer.
Okay.
Okay, and
And
then.
we haven't been borrowing for water and sewer, we've been using it retained earnings. which
General
is great.
obligation bond?
Yep.
And then, let's just say, like, to use the same example of the $100,000. So let's say you went to Steve and you said, like, okay, you got approved for $100,000.
Yep.
And he came back and he said, you know what, I think I'm only gonna spend 25 between now and June 30th.
Yep.
The other 75, you've been authorized to borrow that money, right?
Correct.
By town meeting, so it's there as excess borrowing capacity. And then if you came back, let's say we're in this situation now, so that money kind of stays as an accounting entry of something that that's available for you to borrow.
Right.
And then you could go out to the bond market with that requirement in a few months' time,
Right.
even if it were post July 1 to
Yeah,
make it happen.
exactly. I typically like to only borrow once a year,
Right.
because we do have enough cash on hand that we can spend from our cash, and we
Mhm.
borrow it in May, June timeframe, so that I don't have to do more than once, because there's an exorbitant cost.
Right.
There's a lot of costs, there's a lot of paperwork, we have to update the OS statement every time we do borrowing.
Mhm.
You have to have conference calls with bond counsel, so it's a lot, and it's a lot of cost. I
Right.
mean, it's a huge cost to us.
Right.
I mean, it gets rolled into the borrowing, but it's still expensive.
Right.
So to do it once a year is better.
Okay,
For
that,
closing costs on the house, basically.
Yes, yeah, but they're big.
Yeah, much bigger,
Much
but I
bigger.
mean.
So
Right.
you, for the coming year, you go to the market
In May,
in May.
end of May, beginning of June, yeah. I try not to do May, the beginning of May because of town meeting. It's a big interference.
And you only wanna do it once one time.
Yep.
Obviously, you have to. but-
Yep.
So at least, are the guys, the department heads so good at projecting what they're really going to need? I mean, Steve's gotta be the toughest one.
Yeah, he does okay. I mean, as you look at his spending, he has been spending it down. And we do know that, the 2016, he has committed for projects, and one of the biggest projects, of course, is roofs. And
Right.
they probably won't do those until the springtime.
But we haven't
So-
borrowed against that
Nope,
150,000.
that hasn't been borrowed yet, won't be borrowed till the end of
And
May.
you're also talking about a limited number of department heads, you know,
Right.
3 or 4 at the most. You're not talking about 18 department heads that you're dealing with.
okay, and then I think this is the part where we see this happen at town meeting. So let's say I borrowed $100,000 because I was buying this thing and I
Yep.
got a great deal and it only cost me 50, but you had already bonded the whole 100.
Correct.
Once you've gone out and bonded that money, then town meeting has to authorize it.
To the excess bond
Excess
proceeds to be
bond
applied
proceeds.
against new borrowing.
Okay.
To
Okay.
reduce the cost for new borrowing.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep.
Okay, I think that gets me there, because I was trying to figure that out, because I remembered what goes on at
Yeah.
town meeting, and then I just was wondering how, I guess it's kind of like the mechanics of.
And there is a Mass General law, if it's under, I think it's under $2,000, I can automatically close it out to fund balance. If the department determines that the project is complete, the funds are no longer needed, I can return it to the bottom line and close it out
Okay.
on my own without town meeting vote.
Okay. That
So,
makes sense.
Yeah, so basically, all of these sheets, they're all the same, you'll have a blue one, and then you'll have an old system for each department that has capital projects, and I also included the water and sewer in here as well.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yep.
Can actually follow it.
Yeah. What's the sum total of the balances unencumbered available budget from 2015? 16?
What do you want?
What is the total unencumbered balances that we're still carrying, that we haven't bonded yet, that we haven't?
Oh, the authorized unissued?
Yeah.
Looking for? Okay, I have that in my debt schedule, I don't have it right here. But it's it's basically gonna be all of 2016 votes would be authorized unissued, because we haven't issued anything for any of the 2016.
Okay.
And I think there might be a couple older years which are items that I've asked Andrew to rescind, because we're never gonna borrow them, because they were projects that we had started for some type of, like, for example, we had the revenue, billing software, I think it's 5 years ago, that we were gonna go with a different company, and we never ended up going with it, but I never borrowed it. So the authorization is out there,
hanging
but
out
we're not
there.
gonna use it. So I
Didn't you
just wanna
spend the
rescind
money
it.
to get the bond and to get it authorized, so?
No, we don't spend, at town meeting, it's just.
Oh, it was just at town meeting it was authorized, but you
Yeah.
didn't actually go into the bond?
No,
Sorry.
we didn't go and borrow
Got
it, no, because I knew we weren't going to proceed with it, because it wasn't viable.
Yeah.
And we were moving to munis.
So silly me, I see in the water fund
Yep,
that going all the way back to 2008,
Yeah.
available budget is $1.4 million. And it's always there for someone to borrow against. Is that true?
okay.
I'm just trying to get a best
No,
understanding.
I understand,
These are great
I'm
questions.
trying to get to the water, okay, so 1.4 we're
Yeah.
talking about, which is the unencumbered balance.
Right.
That's the unencumbered budget, it's not the unencumbered balance of the borrowing, that's not.
No, this is the unencumbered, so you could actually go out and borrow against this 1.4 million right now.
No.
Okay.
What happened is, these are all projects voted at town meeting. Everything on here has actually been borrowed or raised from, retained earnings.
Okay.
Okay, other than fiscal year 2016. But in water and sewer, for example, last year we didn't vote, we voted to use retained earnings, so those are completely funded.
Okay.
And I moved the funds into this capital project. Typically, what you would see is, if I had a 2016 project and we were gonna borrow it, that would be the only project on here that needed to be borrowed. You'd have to look at two different pieces of information to find out what is out there to be borrowed, that
Okay.
needed to be borrowed still. And I can get that for you. I can load that up on the Dropbox tomorrow morning for you, if you want.
These are great schedules. I mean, I like the percentage used.
Actually.
I have a basic question, AK dumb.
No.
Encumbrance means what has been bonded?
No, encumbrance is a purchase order that, for a product or a service that we've already in process of doing.
Committed to buy.
Yep.
So, Tim, what do you say, the 1.44 million is not available now?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
like, that's what, bottom line is that 1.4, this is a capital improvement, capital
Yeah.
CIP budget, of which is that.
That's a budget, that's
It's
an
a budget,
available
it's a
budget.
budget, it's an available budget, and it does not represent what has been authorized or is
Right.
going,
It's
can be
already
bonded.
been, it's already been authorized, it doesn't mean that it hasn't been borrowed.
Right.
That's what I'm
You-
saying, there's no indication of what has been bonded, borrowed.
Right, on here, but you can assume, because my typical philosophy and my process is that every May and June, I go out to borrow for the previous town meeting's
Right.
authorization.
Okay.
Unless the project, the department tells me, the project's been put on hold, we've only gonna spend this much, and we're not gonna spend any more for the next 18 months or something.
I get-
Because I'll get into arbitrage if I don't.
Yeah, I'm just, I think maybe Tim and I are looking at the same thing. I'm looking at 08, 2010, 2011, things that, may have some
Right.
stuff left over, and now we're saying,
Mhm.
what does this mean? They can go out and use this if they need to?
Right. Well, you can only use it for the specific
Right.
purpose, right, and
Right.
the reason why some of this hasn't been moved is either it was Mass Water Abatement Trust,
Oh.
It can only be used for Mass Water Abatement Trust similar projects,
Mhm.
which we
Can't
don't
be
have
bonds
any
with
right
different
now.
Okay.
bucket.
Or like the pumping, the booster pumping
Right.
stations, bond council will not let us use it for anything other than similar purposes.
But if
in
we do come up
borrowing
with a
time.
similar requirement, we can go
We can
against
move
this,
it,
we can
right,
move
we
it.
could request that those funds
You
be,
can jump from
be
this
moved.
sheet to this sheet.
But it can't, right, it's gotta
Right.
stay for,
It's gotta stay
Same to
within,
same, right?
Yeah.
yes, stay within the enterprise funds and within the capital projects.
but I guess these numbers stay there forever then, right?
They do unless we move the bond proceeds and close out the project, yeah.
The interesting one, which sort of had a lot of news on it, was the Bear Hill booster pump for $51,000.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's probably a balance. I could go back.
Yeah, there is a balance in there,
Yeah, there is.
50,000.
I don't know, I see there's a balance, but what was the original booster?
Oh, yeah, they, you know,
You only have the previous year,
You
so
only
if it
have the
was,
previous year,
so
you're
if
not
it was
gonna-
14 or before, you're not gonna have it.
Okay,
right,
Mhm.
but that project I thought was completed.
Right.
right. So I can't move that to another project with bond council. I can't move those bond proceeds
appreciate it.
until I have a similar project for the same amount of borrowing years. And my guess that was a larger project that was borrowed for either 15 or 20 years, which we don't do
There's no
anymore.
other
We don't do borrowing for that amount of time
So you're
anymore,
never gonna match
Yeah.
because we don't have to.
Right.
So I can't move it right now.
Oh, so in that instance, you suspect, you don't have a debt obligation, that we went out and bonded the whole amount?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's cash is sitting in our bank, that we
Correct.
can't touch
Right now.
until the
Bruce-
town council
Bruce-
says.
Well,
and we-
Bond council, not
Bond
town
council.
council.
yeah,
Okay.
okay.
So these are the Bob Norbito coffee cans we've been talking about?
Yeah, there you go, no.
So
No coffee
Karen,
cans.
Karen, you had a perplexed look, and I think I know the question you were perplexed about. So all of the FY16 approved projects have not been bonded or borrowed yet. She'll
Right.
do that in May,
Yep,
Okay.
because that gave you a perplexed look.
It did,
when-
if you caught
Yes.
it, yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
exactly right.
So it's
so
like a
any
year
spending that
delay,
we're doing on
Hmm?
those right
Almost a
now,
year
we're using
delay,
our own
right?
cash.
Yeah.
But any
Yeah,
bonds
10
that we
months.
pulled out of, that can be moved to another, we'll do.
Right, 10 months delay.
Yeah, yeah.
Musical chairs.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll tell
we
you.
used to, when I first started,
You
we
need a
were
road
borrowing
map.
twice a year and it was.
Couldn't get it all in one sheet if
And
you
then we
wanted,
do,
you know.
bands and we pay off the bands, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
it was just, it was crazy.
But if we have
So,
similar
we're in a good
projects, we can
place.
reach out and grab.
Right, and I typically look at that every year, when I go to do the borrowing, I'll ask
Right.
bond council to review it all and see what I can move to
Oh.
reduce the cost.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Bond council, a town committee, a city?
Nope, nope,
Whatever.
nope, a
People?
private enterprise.
Yeah.
Mm.
A private,
Standard and Poor's,
Thank you.
yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
no locals.
They're
No local
out of-
committee.
Out of Boston or New York.
Cantor Fitzgerald?
It's not a law firm.
Heard of Big Short?
No, Standard and Poor's,
No, bond counsel.
bond council is not, no,
No, it's just, the term counsel doesn't mean it's an attorney.
yeah, no.
Okay, so,
They're
Advisor.
financial.
Yeah.
They do our bond rating.
That's
She's
just the
right,
title
right,
that
but
you,
Standard
that's just the
Poor's,
title
yeah.
they use,
Yeah, yeah.
right.
It's comparable with
Moody's.
a bond.
I
about.
think
Does
you got
bonds
confused when
instead of
someone said
stocks.
town council. Town council is an attorney, bond council is not.
Well, I just remember that at one of my firms, we had a municipal law department that,
Yeah, no, it's,
that
it's true,
actually-
it's true
this was
financial, it's
30
true
years ago.
financial investors, financial people.
So,
You trust them? Oh, excuse me.
we trust- Did you say that?
Just don't.
And they don't issue the bonds. they
She
just-
didn't mean it.
No, they actually just give a rating on it.
Yeah.
So, how
That's
does the
interesting.
town account for all this cash, this extra cash? And
Right.
where is it sitting and how is it invested?
It's
and all
invested
the-
through the
This
treasurer's
is, by the way,
collector.
great
Treasurer's
questions.
office invested.
Yep, we have an investment policy plan and they follow it.
And they segregate these funds specifically?
Yep. And there's
Yeah.
certain regulations that they can only put
Half a
so much
percent.
money in certain banks and things like that. They can't put all their eggs in one basket.
And in the financial report at the end of the year, you actually have it, you actually identify and have a.
Yep.
sitting
The
on it.
auditors
Footnotes and all that
review
good
it
stuff.
all and stuff.
Spend
Yep.
it
So that comes from the state treasury's office?
No, our treasurer's office.
Our treasurer, our treasurer does the investment under statute.
How many banks do you have to use?
Oh, we have a lot.
Zillion?
We have a
Well, because,
lot.
because you're required to split and not,
You
like
can't put
Lynn
all
said,
in
put
one
everything,
percentage.
yeah, you have to, it's the way you do it.
You can't put it all in one place.
Quick question, Lynn, do we have an idea what the total is sitting out there?
What our cash in
Yeah,
total?
in
is
total, is sitting in
probably-
that kind of situation.
For these, for
Oh,
instance.
for these funds?
Yeah.
I could add them all up, I don't
Yeah.
have a number in my head, but,
That's just a,
I mean, you could look, you could add the bottom of these sheets and then take
Yeah.
off the
Available
FY
budget?
sixteen, and that
Available
was
Just
just,
budget,
sum it,
yeah.
okay.
And that's just CIP though.
yeah,
that's right.
right.
I mean, in total, we probably have 45 million cash in total for the whole town between CI, everything.
Yeah, everything. yeah.
Everything, if you were to add up all the bank accounts and look at our total cash
Yeah, I just think
balances.
of, stuff we bonded, we didn't spend all the money, we're waiting for a light project, it's sitting
Yeah.
there.
Mhm.
How much are we getting in return?
Some of these Bruce is still ticking away at the water and sewer department, yeah. Because of the purpose, if they'll use it, they can use it still.
But only for certain selected specific.
Right.
Another
Certain
pump-
duration.
Similar light projects.
Right.
Another pump
Right.
station,
Yes.
another lift
Yeah.
station,
Yeah.
another,
I like the fact that we've been improving our relationships and our ratings with the Moody's and things like that, but
Yep.
it's, to me, is interesting that had we not borrowed as much, maybe we'd be even better off.
Well, we were in no place not to borrow before, or we wouldn't be able to do anything.
My only point is when you add up all those numbers, the
Yep.
balances,
Yep.
that's what we didn't need at this point in time.
Well, yeah.
But your bond rating is a combination of things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
Right,
not
it's
just-
not just one or two, it's a
And they-
really across the board
Right.
number of things they look at.
So we can't use that as reserves.
No.
Yeah. Because it's spoken for.
It's already designated, so it can't be reserved.
Pre-encumbered.
Well, no, technically, right, technically,
It is.
they're, right, yeah.
Town meeting voted for
Yeah.
this purpose, and this is what the money is set aside for.
Correct.
So the only way to really to give it all back is through town meeting again,
Correct.
obviously, so.
Right,
Yep.
to vote to repurpose it for something else.
repurpose it.
Yep.
Yeah. Which you do almost every year, right, or every
I
couple
do.
of years, yeah.
Yeah, typically every year I try and do it.
Try to move some of it, right?
I do.
But I mean, in a way, it's good. It's almost like a reserve fund for stuff that you can find things for.
Right, it helps reduce the borrowing, especially when our interest rates are gonna be going up.
Gonna be generally
These are
like.
lower
lower
interest rate borrowings,
Yeah.
and we're moving into eventually interest rate going up,
Oh, yeah.
so.
So, I don't know, one hypothetical situation would be, in the sewer department, they might need piping, but they got money sitting over there that was kind of for lift stations, they can't mix those.
No. Only
This
town
is-
meeting
Even
can
though it's
change,
the same effluent
town
we're
meeting can
talking about?
change the purpose. We can vote to change the purpose if Bruce determines that
Okay, they can do that.
Yeah, we can vote to, yep, with bond council's approval.
Okay.
You have to go, everything has to go through bond council though. So that, typically what happens is once all of the CIP book is voted, I send this whole vote to bond council to review, to confirm that they're okay with
These are the things that are okay
everything.
to do,
Yep, yep,
and then we get to get our money back.
yeah.
Does this is great.
Yeah,
Will
this is
this
good.
munis system next year
Mhm.
allow you to run a report for this past year and not next year, but go 2 years back? Like as you build historical data, will you then be able to look at this on
For
a
the-
multi-year at a glance?
For the actuals for 16.
Actual versus
yes,
budgeted?
Yeah, we can't do it now because I don't have that data.
That's what I'm saying, as the
Yeah.
historical data builds up, so this system is.
Right, in FY '17, you'll be able to do 17 and 16.
Which is what we've kind of been
Correct.
asking about on one
Yeah.
piece of
Yeah.
paper, so this is great.
Yeah.
Yay for
Great.
technology.
This is very good.
And thank you for.
Thank you.
It clarified a foggy area that we were, kind of confused at. I think I was, anyway.
Do we have any further questions on this material, on the, I think it was great, thank you very much. I know it probably was a lot of work to pull together.
And highlight.
We appreciate
And
it.
collate.
Yeah.
You
No, but
highlighted these
save
by
a tree.
hand?
I did, yes.
Are you kidding? Yeah.
Bless your heart.
You have to because you're combining two different
Yeah.
sets
Yeah,
of printouts.
exactly.
Right, yeah.
Right.
And I wanted everybody to make sure that they understood where the
You know where
total
the number
is.
came
Thank you.
from.
If we gave you 2 piles and told you to mix and match,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be smiling right now,
I only
Karen.
did one, and then the copy machine did the rest.
Yes.
One question, Lynn.
Yes.
How big is that moving window? We go back to '08 on some stuff, or is any stuff previous to that?
No, this is it. What
This
you
is
see
it.
here, this is it.
Okay.
There is nothing beyond this. This is all of the projects.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Okay, so the next thing we had, or the second part of the CIP plan, would be to basically take a vote on the plan as presented so far for FY '17. What we've traditionally done is we'll take a look and we'll say, you know, what I would propose is that we take a look at the total year in the plan, and basically say, we approve of the proposed capital budget as outlined. And, you know, again, at town meeting, it'll all be in one nice clear table. We don't have the same sort of clarity. We don't have the same, like, easy graphic is the best way to put it
They'll
right
have-
now.
Right.
But I would propose that we could use page 1 of the CIP booklet. It looks like this with the recommended numbers, totaling 7.32757.
7.7.
7.732, right, 7.732,757. So that's what I would propose we do, but,
And then we'd do sewer enterprise and water enterprise? Or is that included here?
This is what we did last year from the minutes.
Yeah.
And did we have to go through every one of those lines and repeat those numbers? Or did we just wholesale import that? Oh, don't, that's.
You,
I just-
you don't have to,
You
I
can
mean,
do
you
it
can
any
do
way
it
you want,
however you
yeah.
want.
You can do it as a wholesale, you can do it as sets, subsets.
Because we only had 7 numbers last year, now we have 14 or something.
30? Does the town manager, like the operating budget, have flexibility to move CIP funds around once?
Nope, once you
Nope.
voted, you can't.
Once they're voted for
So-
the project, they're voted.
So
Right.
basically, we could say 7,732,000, but we'd have to stipulate
As to
as
when.
detailed in the
As-
budget
right.
per
Right.
For a
project.
line item.
Right,
Per line-
correct.
line item, right.
right.
Which is what Bill was referring to at town meeting, because that's the way town meeting really, they
Right.
voted as a whole, they don't go line by line unless someone has an issue. But it's
Right.
as, I forget
As
what the word, as
presented.
presented in the,
presented.
in article, blah, 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 blah.
Right,
We
so
need
to
to
hit,
go line
so to
by
hit
line.
each
Right.
enterprise, you know, so to hit each thing, we could really take a few separate votes. We've got the general fund, CIP, water, sewer, enterprise fund, Stevens
Yep.
Estate
You vote
Enterprise
them as
Fund.
separate.
So I'd propose that we kind of go through each one and vote, and we'll reference the total amount that we approve, and then we'd say as outlined on, you know, page 1 of the CIP packet.
I agree.
You need a motion?
Yeah, so why don't we start with the motion on the general fund?
First of all, is there any questions or discussions on any of the line items in there? I just, for whatever's.
I don't
You could make a motion and then any discussion.
Okay, I make a motion that we accept the fiscal year 17 capital improvement fund for the general fund totaling 7,732,757 as detailed on page 1 of the capital improvement plan, general fund, enterprise fund, 2017 to 2021 report.
Second.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Liz seconded? Okay, that's what I thought.
Sewer?
I've got the words again, I just continue.
Sure, okay.
You're on a roll.
Page 109, right?
I motion that we accept from the recommended sewer capital budget projects for fiscal year 17, the sum total of $150,000 as detailed on page 109 of the capital improvement plan, general fund, enterprise fund, 2017 through 2021.
Second.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Page 127.
127.
I move that we accept the recommended water capital budget projects for fiscal year 17 totaling $475,000 as detailed on page 127 of the Capital Improvement Plan, General Fund, and Enterprise Fund, 2017 to 2021.
Second.
Discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We did this last year. Did it very well last year.
Doing very well.
Do it today. I dare do it.
155, yep. Yeah, one.
I move that we accept the recommended Stevens Estate Capital Budget Project totaling for fiscal year 17, totaling $125,000, as detailed on page 155 of the Capital Improvement Plan, General Fund, Enterprise Fund, 2017-2021 report.
Second.
Discussion? I think it's great, and we should note, for a lot of these capital funds, that they're being funded out of retained earnings, so.
It's a good comment. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I think we can check that one off the agenda.
For the record, again, good job. Lynn.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
All in.
Combination of a lot of people's help.
Yeah.
Input.
Okay. And so the next item on the agenda continues our discussion on collective bargaining agreements. And I'll recap what we talked about last time. We talked about an article that got passed in 2010 by town meeting, which suggested that the finance committee basically ask the Board of Selectmen to put a warrant article on for each municipal contract negotiated in the prior fiscal year, in between town meetings, for town meeting to vote on. We discussed it for a while. We talked about the implications, a little bit about the history. Don has a little bit more of the history, but I think I can sum up our thinking in that, our thinking was, that collective bargaining is obviously very important, and contracts are very important to our long-term fiscal health. B, the town's been doing fairly well at them. C, that visibility might be important. And D, I'd say that, still don't really understand the full idea of what was behind the article that went on to town meeting in 2010, because none of us were part of the committee and heard sort of the full, discussion. We've just kind of gotten little bits and pieces. Don might have a little bit more. Yeah. And, E, maybe that we try some other way to come up with transparency, maybe by commenting in our message, in our letter, in the thing. So I think that kind of summarizes the discussion. And I don't think we have to have as long a discussion tonight.
Yeah.
But Don might have found out a little bit more, and then
I interviewed Peter Besson, who was one of the request originators before I became part of the finance committee. And it's pretty much what Bill has summarized was the goal. The goal was that we need, their desire was to get the amount of money negotiated, or the percentage increase, whatever it was going to be, presented somehow at town meeting, or and I tried to dig a little further to see if there was some desire on the part of the finance committee members to become part of the collective bargaining process, and whether that was a good idea or a bad idea. And I don't know how mechanically how we would get into this whole thing, other than we recommend maybe to the selectmen, and then they make a decision, or that we form a subcommittee of some kind, similar to fixed costs and revenue, where a couple of representatives from the finance committee become part of that collective bargaining. So, but.
And we're not the employer of anybody. So
That's
I
right.
think that's from an authority standpoint, we're nobody's employer. We're an advisory, body. So, it gets into employer-employee relations.
Right.
And so it would be, it would be, I think, and ultimately, at the end of the day, every contract is funded by town meeting when they approve the budget for the department.
Right, and
So
there's a reserve in there for
Right.
that, so.
Under statute, the Board of Selectmen are
Right.
those who
Yeah.
execute a contract.
Right.
The town manager or I, as the assistant town manager, are their designees during the negotiations, but we do not have the ability to sign an agreement or to ratify an agreement. It must go back to the Board of Selectmen.
Or the superintendent of school.
Well,
the
they're a little
They're
different,
somewhat different.
they're different, yeah, it's the school committee superintendent.
Right.
Chris might be able to speak a little bit better from his past experience, but their setup is slightly different because they're under a different statute.
Right.
Yeah, I view it as the finance committee responsibility, is just to make sure that the funds are there. You know, that we can fund it, and it's not gonna destroy the fiscal health of the town going forward somehow, and I don't know how, mechanically, how we do that, so.
Funds are there, I think is part of it, but I think the other part of it is that we're sort of the overview of the process. And it's somewhere between that and sort of the way you look at the CIP, which is, you know, we get a lot of kind of detailed mechanical information that's kind of way above the detail we need in order to determine whether this is reasonable and rational. But it's the same sort of concept, which is, I think the attempt here is to express a way that says somebody's looked at this who is not an immediate party to this and says it passed muster or it's something that we should be aware of.
Yeah, 5 years from now, we're gonna be in big trouble.
And I don't know how, as you say, you've got legal and privacy issues and so forth, so it's very difficult for us to peel into it the way you can with the CIP. But by the same token, I do think there could be a way to give people a little better insight as to what was in there. And to me, that comes from who's ever negotiated that contract or who's ever ratified it. And maybe that would, and to me, that might be the way to endorse that spirit, which is to have something that says, we negotiated the police contract. This is what it encompasses. It's not just 2.3%. It's
It's more
these
to it.
steps and this, and we trade it off, and you can put that all on one page. That's
Well,
it.
it's already, that document already exists. It exists in the MOA for each contract, that once it's brought to the selectmen for ratification, it's part of the public record. So that document already exists. If you look at, I don't know what meeting it was, but whatever the meeting that approved the firefighters contract, you go to the minutes of those meetings, that entire memorandum of agreement is there. What they got, all, if there were 10 things that were agreed to, all 10 things are listed.
So,
But that would require us to follow when something was about to be agreed upon and then find it on the website to
Well-
then read it. Is there a way to get it sent to us in
Well, I
advance
think-
of
It's not
the
gonna
meeting?
it's not gonna get sent beforehand, because
Right.
it's a
It's
confidential
confidential.
document
Right.
until it's ratified in open session.
Right.
So what typically happens is, any discussion with the selectmen occur in executive session. It's one of the reasons for executive session. So even when we reach agreement at the table, we still have the next discussion with selectmen in executive session, because they may disagree
Right.
with what the conclusion was. Once they agree in executive session, then it immediately goes to open session, and that's the first time the document is public.
So does that somehow get into a town meeting information, or the people just
No.
need to go?
No.
No, and that's
When
the.
does it happen?
Right.
Yeah.
So
need to
that's
have
the-
that.
At the same time
That's the
every
key
year.
thing.
Right.
That's the key thing.
When it becomes
that-
public, we should be sent it.
You know, well, I think
It is in the budget.
key portion that I
Yeah, waiting
think
till then.
was a worthy aim of what the finance committee was getting to, and I talked a little to Mark Rogers, who was on the committee at that time. And what he said was the desire to bring more visibility had a lot in his mind to do with the level of service. In other words, if we sign this contract, can we assume that we can still fund the same level of service? Because once the contract is signed and funded, and it's a two-part thing, once it's signed and funded, we're obligated to those funds. Anybody who has that contract can say, this is a ratified agreement.
But it's only funded year by year.
It's not funded for the.
It's not funded.
That's what I'm saying, you say to the following year, so it could be ratified, and there could be a lag before it's.
No.
signed.
Well, yes, there could be a lag before town meeting, but let's say it's a 3-year contract. We'll take, again, because we talked about the firefighters contract
Right.
last. The firefighters contract goes from July 1st of 2015 to June 30th of 2018. That is over the course of 3 fiscal years, but each fiscal year, that must be funded by town meeting. It's not guaranteed. If town meeting decides not to fund something or to cut the fire department's overtime budget, let's just say, for whatever reason.
Well, we're getting into a bad year and we're looking to.
So then there are issues involved there which basically bring us back to the negotiating table because town meeting did not fund a portion of the contract. So really, a typical 3-year contract, town meeting is voting it 3 times in the budget.
Okay.
So
Okay.
every contract is contingent, basically,
On
upon.
funds.
Oh, it
on
actually,
town meeting.
On the town
it
meeting.
actually,
Contingent.
if you read
So-
the opening paragraph of the MOA, they all say that.
Oh,
So,
yeah, so,
conditional contract.
yeah.
Yeah, they all say that.
So if it's
But you know what,
contingent.
though,
So to answer, just, excuse me, so to answer Jennifer's question, if the Board of Selectmen had last night voted an MOA, it could be sent to you today, you know, to see what is included. And as of last night, it's a public record.
Right. And it gets
You know?
posted on our website.
Right.
I'm
Under
thinking,
contracts.
But it gets reviewed in the process of reviewing the budget, because it's an integral part of the budget on an
Correct.
annual basis.
Right, and as we
So
said,
when we review the budget on an annual basis and
Cross that
recommend or
bridge.
not recommend it,
it's
and then we
included.
do it again the next year, and
That's
so
correct.
each year, it seems like,
So all of a
And
sudden,
we're
if,
covering it then. is
So-
what
yeah,
you're
we're
saying.
covering it
so all of a
then.
sudden, if we were sniffing glue and we agreed to a 252, you know, in the
You'd
first
see
year,
it.
the 2 is not a big deal, or you
Right.
see it, but the next year, you're gonna see that 5%.
Right.
And you're gonna have
So
your
you've
say.
been sniffing glue.
Right, and you're gonna have your
What do you know in
say
advance
during
of
the
the budget
discussions.
What
So
happens?
as long as
I'm
we don't
actually-
go with the omnibus, right, cause it's gonna be buried in.
Well, if I agree to a 252 with the firefighters, and again, we're just using them as an example, people.
Yeah.
You know?
Misunderstanding, right?
When you get to the fire department budget, you are going to see a significant jump in the salary line items.
in the second year.
Oh, you're
In the
right.
second year,
Right.
correct.
So, the only point I'd like to make, as part of this committee, is our efforts seem to be just on an annual basis. We're hitting new territory tonight, which is great, we talked about the CIP and the
Mhm.
carries forward. Wouldn't it be wise for us to see that new document and, you know, in a nice way, comment upon that cooperative agreement, the bargaining agreement, in our letter to the town, and says, it's a 3-year deal, looks good.
Yeah.
But if we saw that there was a 252 in there,
You could
we
make
have
a
the
co- you-
opportunity right now to
Right,
say,
to already
this is
start
a
making a
bad
comment
deal,
towards the
don't
second
even
year.
bother with
Sure.
the first year because the
That's a
whole thing's
concern.
bad.
Yep, yep,
It's
yeah.
pathetic.
And that's-
Oh, no, that's correct, that's correct,
Hypothetically.
yeah.
So that would be only for contracts which are negotiated before
Yes.
town meeting.
And it would only be for municipal
We'd
contracts,
stay ahead
not
of the
school
curve on
contracts.
this.
Schools.
We'd be ahead of the curve.
School contracts come under a different statute.
Well,
I
we
think
should
my,
get those too.
my concern with, you know, I don't know how we can solve it. I think it's not so much the year-over-year salary increases, is what's the impact, the long term on, you know, the pension liabilities.
Right.
You know, would we change, you know, you can, you know, you can retire earlier, you know, if that gets into a bargain.
No, you can't do that, that's state pension system, we
So
can't
you can't-
negotiate that all of a sudden a category of employees can retire 5-year
So
early, we
that's
can't
not
do
part-
that.
Right,
that's not
but-
part of it?
No,
At the state
But
level.
we could I mean, there are parts of a contract which figure into pensionable versus non-pensionable.
Sure.
It's under our control to say, you know, for example,
to make the comments
to
in
make
your
a comment
message,
that
sure.
like, you know, this particular,
We have concerns
we
that
have
blah, blah.
concerns on this
Right.
particular area of the contract and that it might increase our, you know, our pension
Right.
liability. It might put
Have
strain
an
on the
impact.
retirement system, which would eventually put strain on the town's budget.
The same way as a number of years ago when we negotiated a 90-10 split to 75-25, your comment would have been in a positive light at that time,
Right.
hopefully,
Right.
he says.
No, absolutely, that's what I think.
A paragraph.
So let me ask this, what's the harm of putting an appendix or referencing that, you know, that MOU in there? I mean, there's a
In
level
the-
of
In the town meeting, you're saying, or in what?
in our letter,
In our letter.
I mean,
With the warrant.
especially if you do it online, to me, it's just a level of transparency. You know, what most people, we have to look with 2 eyes, I think sometimes, it's immediate and long term. what strikes most people is, why did you settle whatever this is? Why is this the agreement today? They focus on the agreement today, not year 2 and 3, by and large. But yet, what's 2 and 3 and beyond is also important. And so by having something that's relatively accessible for people to reference, there's an easy place for that to compile over time. We just make that more transparent. And I would think also from a negotiating standpoint, it's also nice to say, here it is, time in, time out, because over time, as you know, Ray, the people who are sitting at the negotiation table are not necessarily the same people that were there 3 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years
I've
ago.
been for 15 years so far.
You've been.
Not their side.
But there's, that's what I'm
That's
saying.
correct.
But that's also part of the getting everybody
Yep.
to come to the table.
Their chiefs
Is
coming in.
here's our framework. So maybe maybe this could be a way to,
So that would be a
Bucket.
compromise.
yeah.
So we wouldn't put it in an article.
No.
No.
No,
No.
voted. Well,
No.
that was the recommendation.
No,
That was,
Yeah.
No,
The
that's an
recommendation
article.
was for the selectmen to put it into an article.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't go there, but we would go through these contracts and have a few and look at them,
We could
and then
take-
have a
A comment
comment
on the
about
letter.
it.
Here's the MOU, and here's our comment on it, and, short and sweet, we put it in there annually. And then that collects over time. Does that address the spirit?
I think
Seems
it
to
does.
me
I think this-
that we're not rewriting.
Yes, Jennifer,
Can
your
we
letter would
reread your letter?
your letter would get quite
I
longer.
was gonna say,
Give it a second.
we're gonna have an amoeba going pretty
Does
soon.
did the
Yeah.
letter, I'm sorry, I just wanna read it, did the letter also speak of other future items? Because
Yeah.
what you're talking about is looking out past the 1 year, past what's presented at the town. So the letter speaks on all other future items as well?
It can.
Well,
I
it
don't,
doesn't
I
though,
don't know
if we
what it
don't.
said, your letter was
Oh,
great.
our
We don't,
letter-
Your
we
letter,
don't talk
that's
about
what we're
the
talking
No,
about.
no, the answer is no. It talked about that fiscal year.
It's that
Jennifer.
fiscal
Well,
year.
then you have, the
We're
whole
going-
letter is
we're
about
going-
1 year except for this comment?
Jennifer, we went from a paragraph and a page and a quarter,
Yeah.
was it that much?
Oh, it wasn't even that much, sometimes it was 2 sentences.
So,
Yeah.
from that to 6, 7 pages?
War and
I
peace.
think it ended up
War
being
and
five.
peace.
I think it ended up being 5 pages once it
I
got
think it was all
formatted.
peace.
No war.
But
It's all peace.
there's nothing set concrete relative to the format, the style. We created the style. We spent a long time creating the style last year. It's gonna be changed again this year, I can
Oh,
see it
yeah.
already.
There's no restriction on the length of your letter.
No, but it's really targeted at the things that were either controversial, of great concern type of stuff, and
But
just
is
not.
this of great concern and controversial that we're
Yeah,
talking
like
about?
ESCO was controversial, so there was a big write-up on ESCO one year.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think what it's saying, I think it's like the 80-20 rule. I mean, the town spends between 75 and 78% of its funds, and I'm quoting Mark
We're talking
Rogers and not
service
myself,
town.
but
Yeah.
are involved in labor. I mean, it's a service.
Service
It's
biz.
It's a service provider, and it's a
Yes.
service business, and, obviously, if you're the finance committee, you wanna talk about what you're spending on your core services.
Now, for some members who may not be aware of it, the only time town meeting really does vote on a contract is if it's the result of an arbitration award that covers a previous fiscal year.
Wow.
And that did happen once with the fire department. And it was quite crowded and it was a little bit contentious, and because all of a sudden you're, voting on
That is
someone's
saving
contract
money.
and your neighbor and
Yep.
and best friend and people you don't know about. So that's really the only time that town meeting does have an actual vote to fund a contract that's an arbitrator's award that covers a prior fiscal year.
Which was something that wasn't, the contract wasn't negotiated or something?
Well, police and fire come under a special statute.
Yeah.
They can always go to binding arbitration.
Okay.
So
They can't walk out or do anything.
no, there's no blue flu, red flu, none of that sort of stuff. That's illegal. But they do have binding arbitration because of a special statute.
Yeah.
So they can go to the Joint Labor Management Committee, who usually assigns a mediator for a certain length of time, and then the parties agree to either a 1 arbitrator or 3 arbitrator system. It's basically the same, because when you go to a 3 arbitrator system, it's 1 management person, it's 1 labor person, and then a neutral.
Yeah.
So it's, in essence, it's one, it's no
same.
different than 1.
Yeah.
So those are binding arbitration awards, but if they cover a previous fiscal year, the administration must support it, but town meeting gets the actual vote.
In that particular year where your town meeting was approving, voting on that arbitration, did did you use a secret ballot, or
No,
No?
you didn't?
no.
No, I think there was a motion to use a secret ballot, because people didn't want, as a matter of
They wanted
fact, there was a
to
term
vote.
for it, I can't remember what the term was for it. But there was a motion to do it because people, for exactly what,
Yeah.
what these gentlemen said, you know, you're making a judgment on your, you know, and, you know, he sees me vote no, he sees me, yeah, you know, so there was a motion to do that which was defeated, so it was an open ballot.
It wasn't open ballot.
Right. And no, it overwhelmingly passed.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that we don't have it, but sometimes there is an abuse of the secret ballot.
No.
In Maine, it's just
I think
all
I can only
secret
think of
ballot.
one time in all my years here that there was a
Yeah.
secret ballot.
Right. You have to have policemen in the hall.
We did that once, but it was for a special town meeting.
Oh.
We had some issues there.
Okay. So then I think really our next order of business might be to just take a look, and if someone wants to volunteer to sort of pull the information from the website and
Is it just one?
pass it around.
Well,
Just
I'll
one?
go, you give me a time frame and I will give you those MOAs.
Okay.
So I know that,
Great.
I think we determined that police officers were last fiscal year. Firefighters were approved this fiscal year, and police lieutenants this fiscal year, to date.
We have contracts and
Right.
and
Okay.
negotiation.
Right, so I can send you the MOAs of the two groups that ratified this fiscal year.
Okay.
Appreciate
And MOA
that.
stands for what, Ray?
Memorandum of Agreement.
Agreement, okay.
Okay. And then we can
Do you want to tell by when?
read them.
Understanding.
I can send them to you tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Is that quick enough?
Sure. That's great.
Thank you.
What's our action item after this? Do we?
Okay, you want me to go back tonight?
Review them.
We are only got questions.
You want some
Maybe you were
bedtime?
to say a couple
Yeah.
weeks,
You
so.
want
you don't-
bedtime
Back on the
reading?
Selectmen then, at that point?
Set your bar so high.
I'm sorry?
I think,
I was just trying to,
By
I'm
next
just trying to think
Tuesday.
of what our next steps after reviewing and everything else, what we might be doing.
I think we decide what we want to comment and put
Yeah,
it in
maybe
the
that's
letter.
when you
Okay,
talk
so
about the
that'll be
letter
it.
clause.
Yeah.
Just say,
Do we send a
That's why I don't
recommendation
think
up
we
to
need
the
it
selectmen that they need
tomorrow.
to
This whole
do?
exercise,
You don't have
by the
time
way,
to
is-
think.
is making sure when we're doing our duties, we've been doing it so far on an annual basis, now we're starting to look further out. I mean,
Yes.
we've always
Yeah.
looked further out, but
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
this is actually, that's, we're trying to demonstrate.
No, I think
Okay.
it's great.
All right.
Okay. Any further questions on collective bargaining agreements? Okay.
Ray, if you could?
Yeah, no problem. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next, we have
Um,
two real topics left, and I did not check the AV setup in this room before I got in, but basically, our website right now, how many of you have been to the Finance Committee website?
I didn't know there was one.
No? Our landing page. So if you-
You mean from the
Yeah.
town, from the town?
Yeah, that's- I was gonna
wanted
see
to
if that-
cast it, but I didn't want to bother
You mean
her.
from
last
the
minute.
town web, from the town
Hold on,
website?
don't open on a
Yes.
hangout. I will show you.
It's,
If you go to boards and commissions and alphabetically,
Right, that
yeah,
is-
yeah.
that's the website you mean,
That's the
yes.
website.
The web page,
Page, yeah.
I think there is something.
the town's
I
website,
don't
your
have a-
Finance Committee web page.
I know there's a special login that I'm missing. for
No special login, no
I didn't know
secret
that
code or
was
word.
There's
Is there a way to cast?
There
I
might
don't-
be, oh yeah, here we go. We got it right over here. You VGA?
Wow.
No, I may be in tech, but I don't know hardware.
Okay.
I'm a software
Alright.
junkie. Show me the port colors.
Did you enjoy your weekend?
Oh, here, sorry.
I understand I missed you at some receptions.
Yeah, some, right?
Make sure it does what I'll show on the screen.
Just new technologies for road repairs.
Oh, yes, I heard
Oh,
about it,
that
yeah.
must be cool, huh?
I went to a municipal liability, I would have traded you.
That sounds
Yeah,
so nice.
right. Yeah, it was much more fun, right?
Like big trucks doing,
Well, yeah, there was this little truck.
Yeah, it's, I see two green
It's got,
lights.
Yeah, okay.
The glass on the
Now what I'm
bottom.
gonna do is,
And ground penetrating radar.
source.
So he goes over your streets.
And I know I have a source
And
FD,
it
but I don't
shows you what's
know which
under
one
them.
it is.
pipes and all that kind of stuff at the same time.
You had Chris
there's
McClure at the
camera,
wrong-
regular camera.
Yeah,
that
seriously.
spans
I don't want
the
him to know I'm
same,
just
surface.
He knows I'm a software junkie, but
And then there's a person
Hate admitting
that
hardware's
goes
not my thing.
along and does a visual on this spot, so you know, you've got a piece of pavement and it's got all
I
kinds
think
of
if I,
pieces and
well, let me
crosses.
just try a couple of these,
And
hold on.
from those photos and that input.
No, I think we gotta do it on the input over here.
Yeah.
Gets a rate.
I'm like if I know how to do the one at town hall and it's usually a hit or
And then
miss.
they
Yeah.
can produce color charts and
on there now?
maps of whole areas of town that have green, purple,
Does the-
blue,
Oh.
stuff, cracks on them. Also that the selectmen, when
There's a way
people
to
say,
do it.
why isn't my street done, press a button.
Well,
And out comes a
what,
map.
on the website?
Oh.
It's on my computer,
On your
but
computer.
usually all you do is you plug in the hard cord,
So,
and then you go right to
This
my
is
music
why,
push it.
yes, this is why.
You know what?
When I
Mistake.
say
Yeah.
to be
I stayed
reasonable,
7. Some doesn't
a
work
little
well.
bit each year.
Some of it
That's how we do it at,
Yeah,
that's how we do it
I
at
buy
town
the
hall.
picture
We,
strip 'em
yeah.
down.
That's how I
You
learned
know how to
it.
cast it? I know, you guys all have the
I don't
slides.
see people
I just wanna
burst
cast
I did the same thing going, okay, where's
Is
the
it a-
airtime
is it
on the
a push
bottom?
from here?
Get there.
No.
For
Oh,
this
you know
one.
what? I think
It's
that's
a projector up
that.
there.
That's
Oh.
projector. That's why we were confused.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
There's a
I'm
projector.
If
You
we
want the-
can't do
did
it,
you
then
want
There we
just
go.
screen?
Wait a
Is
second.
that
This might
wireless?
be easier.
Yeah, probably a wireless.
So a lot of people.
It's an
Projector.
LCD.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
The word.
That's the oldest.
It's coming on.
And we might have to dim the lights for
Wouldn't be able to drive
the
the
A good,
cable.
oh, of course. I'm gonna say maybe half of them are politicians.
There it comes.
Yeah.
The elected officials.
I've been up since,
And, you know,
15
the
seconds
mayors,
before this morning.
Still warming up.
council,
Okay.
selectmen, well, maybe just and then the other half of them are town employees, administrators, and then you're gonna have members of the fire chiefs. Around this time, you know, see people.
Oh, wow. Okay, all right, so.
All right, so this is great. So Jennifer, why don't you take
No, no,
it?
you
Because it's
go.
Jennifer's
Come on, I'm the instigator.
Jennifer's suggestion that we reformat our landing page. So why don't we take a look at what it is and then take a look at
Yeah.
what she's suggesting.
I'll show you what we are and then what I was suggesting, yes, thank you. Thank you, Bill. All right, so we go to boards and commissions, and then we scroll down. This is tiny.
Fabulous con.
Finance Committee, Tuesdays at 6:30 at Town Hall on the first floor conference room. Just pointing that out. Click on Finance Committee.
No, we're not there now.
No. We have Bill, poor
Yes.
Poor Bill. Address, interests, and then we have names that are outdated, and we have 4 links. I will bring you to
The names
a.
Those aren't outdated.
Those are
Sorry.
Those are
Oh,
current.
they were outdated as of last night.
They were though, I remember seeing
Boy,
that.
I'm such a, thank you, Bill. Thank you. You knew this was coming. I forgot, that's right. Andrew, okay,
I
so.
can read an agenda.
No, this, yes, you.
At my house.
Okay, so meeting minutes are here, and.
There it is, yeah, you're right, Dawn.
Okay.
Did they ask you permission?
Yeah, it's got my house, yeah.
Is that one of, what's her name's photos?
What's that? Oh, yes.
Millie's.
Millie's.
they?
Millie.
Yeah.
These are agendas, and if I click on one, just to show you,
Les Wood.
that brings you to,
That's
yeah,
the-
I don't
that's
even know
the
where these
photo.
are.
He took those pictures.
Oh, wasn't
Those
Millie
are
Matan-
dates.
No,
wasn't
Les
Millie
Wood.
Matanzo? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Leslie Wood, yeah.
They're outdated.
Matter of fact, he gave me, big printouts of 2 of them that he did. Yeah.
That's the meeting schedule.
Center Realty's on the
Now,
right.
I'm gonna show you what
That might
I
be a little
suggested. I have to go to here, here. And I'm well aware, I'm on a different website
And a different system.
and a different system.
But it's in the cloud.
Actually, I think I can get there from here. Let's see.
Yeah, sure.
On the left side,
Can I
right there on the
make
left,
it?
far left,
Public
far
schools.
left,
Public schools.
far left. You're on the left.
What do you mean?
Left.
Far left
Still
of the
on
screen.
North Andover
Far
logo.
left of the screen.
Keep
Down.
going
Middle.
Under the
down.
seal.
Oops,
Public
down
schools.
here. Keep going down.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's, okay.
Oh,
It's
the
not the page
robotics,
I'm
that was
looking for,
great.
but I'll go there. School committee meeting schedule. It's a 1-page, thank you.
Yeah.
So in this, it shows you the date, the agenda, the documents, and the approved minutes all on one page.
Yeah, that's
All right,
fine.
so we wanna go this format?
That's what I'd like to suggest, is we go to a one-page format. So instead of having 4 links, I should have kept it back.
Yeah.
You have one link and everything on one page. And then obviously, as Chris lets us, move to Google Drive. And I
And
It's
think-
just a matter of changing hyperlinks. That's, yeah.
Right.
It shouldn't matter what system they're on.
Well, and what they've done, like the school, they didn't go back in time, they just went forward in time. So back in time might link to Dropbox, and going forward will do Google Drive. So they didn't go back. Do you know what I mean?
Is this hard to do? You said, no, not hard to do.
Well,
Yeah,
I
it's-
don't know.
It's something that has to be discussed
It's
with
work,
Chris.
it's labor.
It has to be
Yeah.
discussed
What
with
he can
Chris,
do
yeah.
and-
Yes.
And
Right.
things like that.
Just
You
moving
have
the
to get it where you
hyperlink,
want it.
yeah.
and
I
then
mean, the
do it
links
from
are
here.
already built
Instead of clicking
because
there,
there are
Jennifer,
links
if you
on the-
just,
on-
if you just go to the alpha, and then
Just
just come
moving the
down,
links to one
just bring
page
down to the
instead of
tab, you
having
don't even
one
have to
to
go to this page.
It's not that hard to do.
Tell me again.
Go back up to the alpha. And just go boards of commission, and then just come down to AH, and then to the right, just come to finance committee.
Right there, just click on that.
One less click.
Oh, and the other thing is, so I don't have to go back, the school committee and other committees have contact information for each of the members.
Well, that's if you choose to want that.
I understand that, but we talked about in our group is transparency and open communication. And I think most of us have North Andover email addresses. I might be one of the few that doesn't use it, but I can have it forwarded.
Yeah, on it?
Yeah,
we-
we do
It's
it,
a buffer.
we put contact information for school committee and selectmen because they are elected
Elected.
officials.
Yes.
As opposed to volunteers.
Or appointed.
They don't have an option.
Or,
That's what
right,
you're
that's what I'm
saying,
saying,
they don't have
yeah.
an option.
Correct.
We do.
But in the past, I've seen this populated with.
Because people have asked for it specifically, that's
Right.
correct.
So, I'm with Jennifer, I think we should really consider putting that option out there.
Okay, but does that raise the question of us speaking as individuals? Should someone write to us and we respond
That's a-
versus speaking as a committee? Because, I mean, we have all kinds of rules about when we make statements, we have to
Open
make it very
meeting.
clear whether
Because
or
if you
not-
know-
Don't we have
if you
a
notice
master
half-
email furl?
But if you notice halfway through, it says, please direct all your questions to the chairman.
The chair,
That's what's
yeah,
been
it
asked
seems like
for
it
in the
should be
past.
one person
Right.
that.
Yeah, but you could do a shared email box, which we will all receive then. So it could be like FinCom@NA, whatever, okay?
Yeah.
And then behind the scenes, that goes to all of us equally.
Mhm.
But it's up to Bill or myself as vice chairman to bring up issue a topic that's been asked, so that we have it for open meeting discussion.
So like if
Because
you
really
click
can't
on
have
GovCAM,
it
it's
against
gonna
public-
go
Right,
and
Yeah,
email
if
to
you
him.
have an
Right,
email
but I felt-
discussion, you're going
Yeah.
against public meetings,
Right.
that was my point.
But if that's the legal,
Yeah,
you know.
that's the unfortunate.
Yeah, like I think in the olden days, before all this stuff, we got a letter.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be brought and made part of the public record and say like a letter was sent to my attention for the
Right.
committee and
Yeah.
here's a copy of the letter, we can take a look at it. We could do the same exact thing
With emails.
with
Like you're
emails.
saying,
I
put
mean,
it
I've
on the
gotten-
agenda, makes it public,
Yeah.
it stays
Right.
in the lineup.
I mean, so far, I can say, you know, as with 2 years of my email on here, I've gotten like 2 questions. One that I was able to just mail a link, like somebody asked, "Where is something?" So figured I'm not a debate, it's not an open meeting issue. It's just,
Yeah.
can you direct me to
Directing
this? So I
somebody.
directed someone somewhere,
Yeah.
and somebody else I think was looking to sell the town investments and.
Right.
You know, so that's about all that I've.
The only ones I get is out of my driveway when somebody walks by and says, why are my taxes so high? You're on the finance committee, why is that?
But I do like the idea, Jennifer, of getting everything on one page,
Yeah.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I like the grid format. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we could
Short and sweet and
maybe
simple.
print this out for the next meeting and sort of mock up what we want it to look like. I think that might be a good.
Can we just use the school committee and say that is how we want it to look?
I like,
Yeah.
it's
We wanna
done.
go that, we wanna do it
Yeah,
that
it's
quickly?
done.
Alright,
It's done.
okay. And then, so yeah, I'm in favor of having it done that way, so I guess if
Yeah.
you guys wanna leave the technical stuff to me and I'll put the back and forth with Chris and just say, this is what we want it to look like.
You know, you're, yeah.
I'll send you the
I'm fine with that.
screenshots if you need it.
Okay.
And who's gonna put the links in from at that point forward?
Then it'll
Whoever
just be the
maintains it
same,
now,
like,
they'll just-
probably have to make some changes.
Well, we're outdated by 3 months now for uploading our latest, not the agenda, but I think our annotated minutes.
So we'll just, I think it'll just be the same, it's
It
just
should be,
like,
the last, set
Oh.
of minutes that were approved.
Oh, they're
You
all
you
in,
just,
okay.
you just approved the only 2 minutes in 16.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, I think it's just a matter of, so it's a question of kind of how we handle our web editing, which I don't know the answer exactly for how do we put up the hyperlinks, but it's just.
They just type
She
them in.
knows,
Showing
because
a grid.
she's, somehow,
They type
Angela,
an
you're
address
funneling it
where
through
the
to
document's
somebody
located.
to put up the links.
Well,
Or are you doing this yourself?
I mean, I have to go on, like, I have, approval to go onto this certain website, and I can download or upload, like, the agendas and the minutes, but I couldn't change all that
No,
around.
that's graphic design,
Somebody's
but once they
maintaining
set it up,
stuff,
they'll show
yeah.
you, and then you'll be able to
Right,
upload, so you can
right.
continue to upload, okay.
They may have
That's
a
great.
development mirror.
I would
that they
imagine the uploading
load
wouldn't
first
change
and
at
then they
all.
move it to the
This is just a
production.
matter of pointing to wherever she's uploading.
Just
it.
Right.
you have to
This
upload
is
it.
So her,
system.
I don't think this would affect you at all. You'll upload to wherever you upload.
Right.
It's just somebody, whoever maintains this
Yeah.
needs to put the pointers into where you
It's a
put the
link.
material.
Right,
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know who maintains this. That's really the
Right.
question.
Okay, so we'll put it in the grid format with the meetings by the meeting date, location, agenda, documents, minutes, all sort of across, so this short and sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
All right,
Can I mention this social media?
yes.
So, we have all of these, right? Email, Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus that are mentioned. I want to somehow get it that every time we have a meeting, in advance of the meeting, it is published on social media of the date, the time, the location, and a link to the agenda.
Yeah, so that, all I gotta do, what Andrew said, is just send an email to Andrew, and he'll put it out on the account.
Can I ask that Angela, once the agenda is created, that you just go ahead and send it to him? Is that too much? Since she's doing the final agenda
Right.
and knows the location and the date.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine with me.
are you gonna let him know that you
Yeah,
want
I'll
this on
send,
email?
I'll send a note, I'll send a
I
note
want
and
to
say
tell
that.
him what to do.
Right, no, I think we could, why don't we say it's the Sense Committee that why don't we take a quick vote and just say it's the Sense Committee that we want our, meeting times, location, and agenda sent out over social media on a weekly basis, and we, authorize Angela to handle notifying the appropriate person to put the message out over social media.
Second
Fine.
Well, you actually made the
I know.
motion since he can't.
Yeah.
I know. In essence.
Yeah, somebody's gonna make
I
that
think we're,
Okay.
I don't know. if
Someone
we
wanna
can
make a
vote
motion to that effect?
I make a motion to that effect.
To that.
And
That works.
somebody already seconded it.
Okay.
No, I think, I appreciate it, I mean, I understand it's a little more work, but I think it just is in keeping with the spirit of what we've been trying to do, so I appreciate, Angela, adding that to the task list.
So Bill, do we have the town manager coming in for questions?
No, so,
That's me.
Yeah, the,
Oh.
you forgot the cardboard, mailer stand. Yeah, good.
If I can answer the question, if not, we'll get you an answer.
you have any kind of protocol for, if, what happens when the town manager is incapacitated, like the, sort of presidential edicts?
No.
And not
No,
that
you
we
Who's the
travel with the same card.
Who's the Alexander Haig of this?
There's a reason why I've been in the business 37 years, and that's not it, Bill.
No, so I'll explain kind of so here's here's the genesis for the section called, kind of questions for town manager. So Jennifer had a few questions that we sent back over to Andrew over email, and he said I'd rather come in and answer them. I think it's more appropriate that they be part of the answers be part of the public record. So basically, I will just put this on as kind of a standing agenda item for the times we thought he was going to be here tonight, but for times we anticipate we could just put that on, or we could leave it on as an agenda item just to say we have this question, and we could email it over, and then we could keep a running list, and then when he comes in for any particular reason, he could answer those questions on the public record. So that's the general.
Yeah, and I would ask that the questions be forwarded beforehand in case he has to look
Yeah.
something up or do some
Right.
research or whatever.
That's really the idea.
Yeah.
That's it.
So that's all we're trying to do.
That's my question for tonight. Awesome.
So I don't know if Jennifer, any of the questions, any of those questions Ray could answer now, or if we should just
If I don't,
clarify the question.
let me ask a few.
Yeah, sure.
And then you can just table.
Yep.
Because you didn't know, or maybe this is totally inappropriate. Economic development, I was looking for more clarity on the 5-year plan, and also to understand why that has been tabled for a year or two. Like, we didn't see anything, I know we didn't see anything in the CAP, because that's about facilities. We started getting the discussion about budget and heard Eric speak. And it doesn't seem like there's anything planned for the next year or two for funds to get a consultant to put together a master economic development plan.
Well, I think I would wait till the answer could come later, but that would be in the operating budget, which you haven't received yet.
Right.
Okay.
It's not, that
So it
kind of.
could be in there.
Right, kind of endeavor would not be a CIP project.
Okay.
So it would be something that would be in the operating budget.
And I thought when he came in, he implied he was gonna
I
have
believe-
that
I
He
believe
said
that's
it for
correct.
next year, not for this year,
Okay.
and that's why
Right,
I'm
but that's,
asking.
yeah, but that's,
That's what he
we're gonna,
meant
that's
next
the
year. I
budget,
think-
that's what we're gonna be
By next year, he
working
means for the FY17
Yeah.
budget,
Right.
that's what he means by next
He
year.
didn't have anything in 16, he's
Right.
talking
Yeah,
about.
because he just
So
came on
you
the
should,
job
you
at
should see
16.
something, right, you should see something
Got it.
in the operating budget, and if you don't, then that would be an appropriate follow-up.
Okay. Just going through my questions. I don't think this is for you, I think this is for us, about, Dr. Price presenting the school budget sooner than later. Like, she's not scheduled for a while, I think she's presenting to us only a couple
Right.
weeks before we have to decide, and isn't that not 2/3, another percent, just 68, whatever. Could we have her come sooner? And present?
I think it's based on the process, I think that's based on the process that the school department has.
Right.
I believe their public hearing is this Thursday.
Thursday it is,
And
yeah.
then they have a process of several readings and feedback, et cetera, before they vote on the budget. So if you go to the budget calendar, I think that would answer your question as to when the school committee will actually be voting their budget.
Because they won't
Right, 'cause I
present it
think-
to you until then.
Right, so there's not really an opportunity for us to see it until they've actually decided it.
Right.
And so it doesn't make sense for us to see it before they've decided it until they've decided it. So I think that's part of the problem, and
Okay.
it does run late,
Okay.
absolutely, so.
Okay.
But if you give me a second, I might be able to give you.
That's okay too, I can go online, because I know the schedule's there, I didn't understand that the school committee has to vote on it for us to then, right? Okay. We had talked before about receiving comparables of, from other towns to compare to our town's expenses, like we have the comparables for the school. You know,
What do you mean by-
like different
what do you mean by
towns,
comparables? Like budget and.
for example, like, take a
Comparable
a town that's, similar to us, and how much do they spend on safety? And how much do they spend on public works, and how,
We don't compare ourselves to other communities. The foundation that we go by is sustainability. You know, we don't wanna do something this year only because the comparables say to do it.
Yeah.
And then next year have to cut jobs because we can't make ends meet. We've, you know, you also have to take into consideration, I mean, people always compare us to Andover. Okay, Andover is roughly the same size, but they do.
Yes.
We're roughly the same size community, we're roughly the same population or whatever, but their budget is probably 80 to 90% higher than ours. But there are a number of factors that work into that, including the fact that they have a much larger commercial base than we do.
Yeah.
So it's tough to say, okay, here's a community your size, or Burlington is your size.
Yeah.
You know, but again, Burlington far exceeds us in terms of commercial base and lower taxes and services and budget, et cetera. So it's really different. I mean, it depends what is the criteria you're using as comparable. Is it simply size? Is it simply population? Is it simply per capita, blah, blah, blah? It's tough to get a bunch of the criteria to match because one or two of them may be out of whack, which will affect that comparison,
We
Jennifer.
tried, just,
We've had
just a
serious
further comment, we
discussions.
tried
We tried that
this
last, Liz, I
We
will
went
say,
off.
Liz went on a mission last year to
Am
try.
I close to the
I'm sorry,
explanation?
just
Yeah,
bring
yeah.
it up.
Am I close to the
But-
explanation,
You guys are
Liz?
supposed to zip it.
You
But
can
the
define
problem,
it.
no, but you know what the problem is?
But it's good, I mean,
Well, no, and I see schools, so schools a little more black and white than the town. Is that what
Yeah.
we're saying?
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you.
well, the other thing is, I think, in fairness to the discussion here, there is a mechanism to collect all the school information that is homogenized or standardized across the communities. So there's a reporting mechanism for that. There's not a state reporting mechanism for towns. So kind of to what Ray's saying,
systems.
I'm not so sure we couldn't find it, but there's not a
No, it would take
system that you
forever.
can
It's not
tap.
just report.
Right.
I would like to
Mass
speak to
municipal
this.
though.
However,
shows
though-
that.
I would
You're
like
just
to
gonna
speak
tell
to-
us
that
something
they
about
have
the
some-
website.
Okay.
They're working on it.
the-
All right, let's give Karen the floor, and remember that
Oh, here-
our viewers at home can't hear all the.
All right, well,
They-
here's
they-
some.
We need to
can I
limit
take
our
these all the way
stimuli.
down?
Yeah,
Handy.
Lynn and I will share, or actually,
Oh, yeah, you're gonna have to, sorry.
Oh, we can look at the TLS.
No, okay. All right,
We're good,
so
we're
anyway,
good.
the Massachusetts Department of Revenue has rejiggered its website. They hired somebody from Brookline on the municipal side to make the site more user-friendly. I took some pictures here of the website, and you can see right there, you go to www.mass.gov, and when you do, this is what greets you. What you do is you press on the button that says cities and towns. That brings you to.
Mass.gov/DOR.
Yep, 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 DOR. That brings you to the next page, which is mass.gov/DOR local-officials. And it gets you to an interactive map. There we are. Data map. And with the interactive data map, on the side, you can see where I have circled municipal data bank. Okay, so if you, and cities and towns, if you press the municipal data bank on the page unit, you get to the next page, which gives you a number of things that you can pull out of their,
So you can customize your own query.
you could customize your own query, you could have actual revenue and expenditures, adopted local options, cherry sheet, Community Preservation Act, and it gives you the ability to pull that information out for each one of the 351 cities and towns. If you just wanna do 3 cities and towns, you can pull it out for that, you can compare them. So distributions of property tax exemption reimbursements, smart growth, socioeconomic data. So what I did is I went in on the next page, I went into the municipal data bank. And I chose 4 towns to compare. And so it's Andover, Haverhill, North Andover, and Wellesley. The only thing I don't have on here is the population. Or is there a population? Yeah, yes, and you can pull it out, and I could have done it, I just ran out of time. But look at the residential levy, open space levy, commercial, industrial, look at the industrial, property levy, and then residential and open space levy as a percent of the total. So these towns are very different. I love looking at Wellesley because.
I don't think anybody would ever compare us to Wellesley, though.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you compare Wellesley and Andover, you can see that Andover has a huge industrial base.
They do.
Right.
Absolutely.
And Wellesley doesn't.
But their total levy is about the equivalent.
About the equivalent.
If I'm equivalent. So I just did this as a test.
Right, to see what would
see
This is
generate.
a lot better than they've had in the past.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And, it's really fun to go onto that website if you just follow these prompts, and you can do your own cookbook. Put
each of it,
into
right.
your own
Because
statistics.
the DOR has all of the expenses and
We
everything.
just had to pull it together in an easy to navigate database.
For every community.
So then I
Every
chose
year.
one on free cash.
I
Yeah,
saw
look at that, huh?
yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
on that one,
We're
you're
more than
able to
Andover.
export the export the information into an Excel
Excel.
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I actually did that.
There you go.
On my own little computer. Impressed myself. Yeah.
I joined the.
So that's just free cash. There are many other tax reports that you can get for that, so I just say, keep that in your file.
It's beautiful to look at the North Andover number over the years.
Yeah.
Kudos.
Yeah.
We were
It's
negative.
increasing.
We were negative at one point.
Yeah.
For 2
In
years.
fact, for 2 years, I had a nice looking bar graph with reds and blues on it, but I forgot it.
Couple of reds.
Yeah, I got two reds, and way down there, and then they're going up.
It's red and green.
Yeah, so you can go and compare things, to your.
Good. Well done.
You can. Yeah, that's yours.
That's excellent, I like it.
Okay.
Okay, you need one, Karen?
So I just wanted to speak to that particular thing.
You got a lot of it
I
there.
don't need it.
I think
Right.
you wanna drill down, right?
So,
Want to go down a wormhole?
does that cover our
Yeah.
town manager questions? Why don't we do the rest over email? And I'm saying this selfishly so that I have to get on a plane tomorrow at 5:30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where you going?
It's still 12
Where are you
hours.
going?
Toronto.
Toronto.
What?
Okay.
Good weather.
10 hours to go.
Yeah.
What's the harm?
You sleep when you're dead, right?
One more?
So do we want to, one more and then?
One more?
Okay.
Okay, right. The governor spoke and he said that the tax revenues, state revenues were up 4.3%. And we therefore, cities and towns, were going to get the equivalent of 4.3%.
That's his proposal.
That's his
That is-
proposal.
Got a long way to go.
See, a long way to go.
Along with it, here is his proposal, this is his budget. And then if you were ever interested in the foundation budget formula,
Oh, yeah.
here it is.
It's all exciting.
Page and a half, stultifying, I mean, it's really fantastic, you know, the formula that makes the foundation budget, the end of which spits out the chapter 70 money and the unrestricted general government aid money. And then it lists all the cities and towns.
How much they're
and
gonna get?
How much they're gonna get, and in what I'm handing out here, the third page shows how much
These
we're
are
gonna get.
handed to us after the opening
Right.
So
session,
he says-
after the governor makes his speech.
After he makes his speech, so it says, additional, let's see, what is this? This is the governor's, this is local aid information based on the governor's FY 2017 budget for
Recommended.
individual cities and towns. Recommended,
Recommended budget.
okay?
Then comes the House budget,
Yep.
followed by the Senate
Senate
budget,
budget.
followed by the compromise budget.
Yes, exactly, so just so you can get some.
People compromise?
Feel.
They have to, or else there's no budget.
This language has got to get fixed sometimes, you know, it's just so nutty that no one ever wants to look at it.
Yeah.
You know, things like that.
Well,
Okay.
it is the
Finally,
deal that makes it go. Survey says.
And finally, we
Oh, okay,
had,
so-
all of this stuff that goes,
Oh, Ray, you're gonna get all kinds of money to play with.
It's about 70, it's up about 70,000, chapter 70.
Oh, yeah?
And
Yeah.
states,
and
unrestricted.
there was a lot on opioid addiction,
Yeah.
and,
What's he gonna do with that? That was a big thing on his speech, right?
yeah, there was a big thing in his speech, he has,
He basically repeated on Friday morning a lot of the highlights of his State of the Commonwealth
Right.
speech.
Okay.
including the Municipal Modernization Act, that he's gonna be doing,
There's a lot of good things in that act. that
downtown
changed some of
business
those.
development, there were a lot of good things on that. Anyway, so there is this if anyone who is interested in the opiate addiction problem in Massachusetts and, you know,
Huge.
the entire United States, there is a Mass Municipal Association report on the problem, what various cities and towns are doing about it, the position that the Mass Municipal Association is taking on it. If you want this, you need to go to their website and download it. Meanwhile, I will hand out the first page of it. Don't have to take it, but if you're not interested in, because this is not strictly finance finance committee stuff, but everybody's got kids in school, you know.
I was gonna say, anybody with children.
Yeah.
Well, it's not strictly finance, but it does hit the bottom line.
Yeah, so you just go in there, you can get this stuff. All right, then, after we got finished with this,
Karen, you need to give a copy to Angela, cause it becomes part of the minutes.
that was
Yeah, here, hold on.
Yeah, you can
Give
keep
her
mine.
this.
I got it. I'll
Wait, no,
Sure?
I'll give her that stuff, she's got the other stuff.
I can give all.
Here,
I'll take
here,
all three.
Angela. You need that.
Then I
can
got
get
back
that one. I have that one. Thank you.
from the meeting, and on Monday, there was a New York Times article, front page article, it was under the centerfold, on the Gloucester police chief's way of managing his opioid problem in Gloucester. It is extensive, it is well-researched. I was amazed at the amount of material and research that was done, and it gives a very good picture of this situation nationwide. And talk about social media. He just, this police chief used it, and he got about a zillion hits when he first decided that he was not going to arrest people. He was going to say, come in, put your paraphernalia down here on the desk, I'm not gonna arrest you, I'm gonna make sure that you have a bed tonight, et cetera. And so, this is how he put together that program. I'm not advocating anything. I'm just saying that this is what one person did, and I think he's a very unusual person on that one. But then other cities and towns, Attleboro and Arlington, have other ways of looking at that.
I read it already.
Oh, you did? Okay. What'd you think of it, Bill?
I liked that. That was a great article.
Isn't it? But he's a really unusual fire chief, or police chief. He's more like a.
Yeah, this is something else. We gotta go get that one too.
All right, I'm done.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
For
Very,
me
very
that
good
one,
stuff.
because, okay, so that's okay. This is,
That's
okay.
okay.
Angela, do you also have a local agency?
Yes, I have that one. I just got that. Thank you.
Anything else, Bill?
And then I just wanted to quickly hit the update on the schedule. I think I still have the one as draft here. And basically, it's, it's pretty solidified. We on Monday the 8th, we could receive the budget. In other words, the budget will be printed, and that night it'll go to the Board of Selectmen.
My fingers crossed that it will
Right.
be. I'm working on it.
Right, okay. So,
No, it will be.
that night, there is no Finance Committee meeting on Monday, the 8th, but we could go to the town, the town elected officials, the Board of Selectmen is receiving budget that evening. I believe there'll be a message. So, I will probably attend, encourage you to attend, and it might,
And where are they meeting?
School committee room?
in the school committee room. Okay.
Confused. Are you presenting it to them on the 8th?
So
The town
Andrew,
manager is,
the
yes.
town manager is presenting the budget, his budget to the Board of Selectmen.
He
Is it
basically-
to us and present it after again?
Right.
Yes.
It's government.
Yeah, okay.
I did ask the Board of Selectmen if they wanted to have a joint meeting, and they did not want to have a joint meeting, so
Oh,
we're not
they
having a
didn't-
joint
Did I
meeting.
refrain well?
So,
I see, you did ask, he asked.
I asked,
Yes.
yeah.
Jennifer.
And,
I know he did. I know, no, he really put himself in the fire on that one.
so I did, and, to keep with the fact that, in that case, Andrew is their employee, and he's reporting on the budget to them, carrying out their budget priorities, so therefore, it makes sense for him to report to them first. They theoretically have a month to adjust the budget anyway in the budget calendar, so it doesn't mean that the budget that Andrew presents on the 8th is the budget that the Board of Selectmen will
Right.
approve.
Well, typically what
Typically
they do
pretty
on the
close.
8th, they will approve it, reserving the right to make changes.
Right.
So that way it can get forwarded to you.
Right.
School admin building, what time?
7 o'clock on the 8th. Don't look for me, I'll be
So
in
it makes,
Florida.
so it makes sense to do it that way, and, obviously if, maybe if if we either are able to attend the meeting in person, watch the meeting on television, or watch a recording, we could communicate that as a committee to Andrew and say, you know, we saw your presentation, we don't have to have the same sort of 0 to 100 review of the budget. So that maybe we can accomplish the exact same thing by just attending or viewing the meeting at our convenience. And I think that would help, just because, you know, relatively speaking, we have 2 elections in March. So there are 2 nights we can't meet, 2 Tuesdays. We're trying to stick to Tuesdays. So there are 2 elections in March. The presidential primary and the town elections, which kind of means our schedule is abbreviated. So,
This gives us a jump start and somewhat seeing, not the final numbers,
Right.
but
yeah,
close.
I mean, the numbers we're going to be reviewing anyway for the next few months.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the Board of Selectmen ultimately make a recommendation on the budget before that's in the budget calendar. I forget exactly where, but, you know, that's kind of set in stone, and then it goes into the warrant and so forth for town meeting. So, we haven't seen, I think we could say over the last few years, we haven't seen any changes between what the town manager prepared and what.
Maybe some tweaking of numbers, but nothing
Nothing
dramatic.
big.
Small.
Yeah. So we can do that. And then, you know, we kind of have each division head coming in to talk over their portion of the budget. Andrew or Ray and or Lynn will be, you know, available. We'll cover those sessions as needed. And what we've said is, you know, what I've said to Andrew this year is, you know, he'll bring the department head for each group. So for example, on the 9th, he's gonna bring Kathy Darby, who's the head of HR, and also the division head for community services, which is elder affairs, library, and veterans. If there was anybody that we wanted to hear from, the head of the elder affairs or the department, or the veterans department, or the library, if we wanted to hear from anybody, we could pass a request on that, you know, we would like to see them at the meeting if they could make themselves available. And, you know, and ultimately I'll work for Andrew, so, you know, we can make the request, and Andrew could see what he could do and do what he thought was in, you know, the best interest of the town departments. So if there's any, you know, if there anybody who falls under that part of the administration that you would like to hear from, you know, send me a note, I'll send it to Andrew, and we'll just say, you know, that's what we would want to do. So we can cover on, we could basically make sure that, you know, we expressed our wish to have someone come and talk about their portion of the budget. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So now it's the transition to the second stage, to the operating budgets. You know, we won't talk about the SIP again, you know, directly, and sort of those things. We've kind of spoken on that, and then we'll just start on the second part of the budget. And hopefully, we have a nice, weather-free Tuesdays.
Jinxes.
Yeah, the next few months.
Oh,
For
can
many
I ask one
reasons.
admin thing?
Sure.
Can you ask the attendees to be listed on the agenda that will be public?
Sure.
Say that again?
We ask, could we have the agenda say,
Attendees.
Attendees.
Sometimes I don't even know myself who's
Right.
coming.
I mean, I didn't know till 3 o'clock when Andrew went home.
It's
Saturday.
not that easy for me.
Well, we
Yeah,
could-
because it doesn't say names here. Okay.
right, so I think we could, I mean, I could run through this right now, and we could at least say the names of the division heads, because we know
Yeah.
they will be there. So for community services, it's Kathy Garvey, and check my spellings, that's on the 9th, and we can put that in with the agenda. On the 23rd, it's Bruce Thibodeau. On the, this is the one where I'm not 100%, on May 3rd, support services,
That's a combination.
that's a combination, and they
Right.
ultimately all roll up to Andrew.
Correct.
But, you know, facilities, Steve Foster, IT, you know, it's Chris, so we could, you know, just ask Andrew who he's gonna invite, but Steve usually comes, and Chris, or the person in Chris's role, has traditionally come too. Public safety, the town manager.
And the 2 chiefs.
And the 2 chiefs will come.
And
Chief
Joe
Gallagher
Cook.
and Chief Malukas.
Joe
Well,
Coco.
Chief Melnikas will be retired by.
He will be, that's what I was gonna ask. He will be retired,
He'll be
okay.
retired by March 16th or something. so.
Okay.
I'm sorry, yeah, March 16th, somewhere in that area.
Yes, the chief of the
FEMA.
emergency, Joe.
Yeah, Joe Coco.
Joe Coco.
Yeah.
Jeff Coco.
Jeff
Jeff
Coco.
Coco, I mean, yeah,
We're,
Jeff.
yeah, we definitely are having him, right?
Yep.
This
Yep.
year, good.
Is that a request?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll put it. Yeah. Community development is everything that rolls up to Eric Kafori.
Yes.
And then the school department obviously is Dr. Price and.
Dr. Price and Jim
Jim
Neely.
Neely. And so beyond those division heads, anybody else we wanna see, we can put in a request to the town manager.
Where do we get the CPA review?
So
I know
to-
it's always an
just
ask.
before
Well,
the
let-
town
let me,
meeting.
let me fill, so today, the decision was made that the applications must be filed by February 16th.
Okay.
Cause they wanted to do it much later, and if, based on them doing it much later, and then their review, and then their required public hearing,
Yeah.
you might have had 2 minutes to review their request, so the town manager, I think the schedule says February 4th, but the compromise was February 16th for the,
We're gonna get it earlier.
you're going to get it earlier, because then they have to they'll do their meetings to review, they'll have to do a by charter, they must do a public hearing, and then you'll get your chance, but you'll get it before, the way their schedule was set up, you weren't gonna have any time. So that got changed.
Well, thank you.
Right, so I guess that's a TBD, we'll have to put that on, you know.
We'll have to fit it in
Add it.
somewhere.
I think it's in the calendar, but it might be tweaked a week or two back.
Right, I know the public hearing was in the original budget calendar.
Yeah, but like I said, but that also included the original applications being done by February 4th, Bill.
Right.
So now it's February 16th, so you can assume everything is 2 weeks maybe in arrears.
Right.
And of course, it also depends how many applications they get and how many meetings they need to do their own review.
Right.
There were years when they didn't get the applications they thought they were gonna get to.
It's
Well, there's been plenty
no
of
rhyme
years
or
where,
reason sometimes.
plenty of years where we got the presentation 15 minutes before
Before the
town
town
meeting.
meeting.
Yes.
So-
As did the selectmen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
That's
So-
what we wanted to avoid this year.
right. So Angela, if you could put that on as just as a note that, our one big unresolved schedule issue is when we'll hear from the CPA request. And so, as an action item, I'll send Andrew
Yeah.
an email and just say that, you know, we want.
And we actually just discussed it today.
Right, we just wanna make sure we reserve a meeting slot, and we'd like the,
Right, because I think they need a 14-day advertising of their public hearing, if I'm not mistaken, or something
Right.
of that effect too.
14 days.
Right.
Oh,
14
And the-
calendar days.
Right, and the
as
public
opposed to
hearing,
business days.
and the public hearing date, you know, again, like, I think when we can take advantage of, I know a lot of you go to the school committee hearings and so forth, and we can take advantage of a public hearing on the CPA. It can actually be helpful too if a few of us can go and sort of prepare the rest of the committee and say, these are the types of things that were coming up, and these are the numbers, so.
Because I think they have to have their public hearing before they do their final vote, if
Right.
I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Okay, anything else now that we've gone through the schedule? And do we have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.